Dispatched to rescue missing teens in a cursed cave, we discovered terrifying secrets exposed. The pallor of dusk settled over Hollow Creek like a shroud. Jenna's heart raced as she gathered the volunteer team outside the fire station, the air thick with tension. Whispers of missing teens had rattled the town, driving them into the infamous Whistler's Hollow, a cave steeped in despair since the mining disaster decades ago, where tormented spirits were said to linger, hungry for vengeance. As shadows crept, her nagging instinct told her they were about to unfold something darker than just a rescue mission. "We can't go in there," whispered Mark, his eyes darting nervously to the cave's yawning entrance that seemed to pulse with an insatiable dark hunger. "It's cursed." The words hung in the air, chilling them further. But there wasn't a second to lose. If she wanted to restore any sense of safety for her son and community, Jenna had to put her fear aside. As they trudged through the overgrown path, the trees loomed like giants conspiring against them. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the silence became, thick enough to cut. Flickering headlamps revealed walls glistening with moisture and dark mineral veins that twisted like veins of the cursed earth itself. A sharp crack echoed, causing Jenna's heart to leap. "What was that?" someone gasped, faces drawn in anxiety as whispers of their greatest fears rose like ghosts. "Just a rock falling," Jenna reassured with wavering confidence. But the unease gnawed at her. When they stumbled upon a circle of ash, evidence of a campfire, the knot in her stomach tightened. She felt the pull of dread, and a voice in her head screamed to turn back. The cave felt alive. It beckoned with sinister promises. Before they could gather their wits, Jenna's beam of light fell upon strange symbols etched into the rock, pulsing with something. Was it a warning or a call? Panic clawed at her throat. They needed to stay united. "We're close to finding them. We can't lose faith," she urged the team. But as shadows twisted around them, doubt flickered in their eyes. Old grievances bubbled up, each accusation a deeper stab into their collective confidence. "Did you ever think they might have gone in because of you?" Ashley snapped at Marco. "You're always bragging about your stupid ghost stories." Voices rose, each bite revealing layers of buried distrust, like the cave swallowing reason itself. "Settle down," Jenna shrieked, panic tightening her chest. A chilling scream tore through the darkness, reverberating off the cave walls, tearing through their hope. It cut deeper than any accusation, whispering of buried tragedies and lost souls. Right then, Jenna's instincts flared to life. The former coach, the idol of their town, had taken kids into these caves for bonding experiences. It twisted her stomach to think what they might find. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The oppressive cold intensified as they plunged deeper, the air thickening around them while another scream, this one wailing, especially mournful, echoed again. Jenna's heart raced, the faint rustling of memories long buried pressed against them. Dark shadows slithered around corners, skirting the edges of their lamps. One misstep and chaos would ensue. They stumbled upon a makeshift altar, rocks stacked in ritualistic patterns, mysterious photographs clustered at the base showing the missing teens, mingling with images of town gatherings steeped in dark rituals. The air pulsed with a thick tension, the weight of betrayal pressing on Jenna's shoulders. This wasn't just any mission. This could tear apart everything thrown in their path. A flicker of hope twisted into terror. What secret had Hollow Creek buried deep in the darkness of Whistler's Hollow? As she moved forward, drawn deeper by that pathetic scream, even the cave seemed to yearn for a release, a reckoning that Jenna now had no choice but to confront. Would anyone come out of this alive? The floor beneath them trembled slightly, a subtle warning in the encroaching darkness. The flickering lights from their headlamps played tricks on their minds, making shadows dance across the walls. Jenna fought to steady her breathing, but panic was rising like bile. "Stay close," she urged, her voice trembling as it echoed down the corridor, swallowed by the hollow embrace of the cave. "Do you hear that?" Mark's voice was barely a whisper, his eyes going wide in fright. The others fell silent, straining to hear over the thumping of their hearts. A low, guttural growl reverberated through the air, twisted like a serpent ready to strike. The source was indiscernible, creeping from dark recesses beyond the dim light. Ashley clutched Marco's arm, her knuckles white against the dim glow. Maybe they're still alive?" she stammered, yet her words were laced with dread. The pit of Jenna's stomach churned at how quickly hope can morph into despair. They pressed on, crossing the threshold deeper into the cave and into unknown horrors. The walls felt like they were closing in. Each step stirred memories of safety and comfort now foreign to their feet. Jenna spotted another symbol crawling up the wall. This one jagged and twisted like a gnarled hand. It felt malicious, sinister, almost as though it was mocking them. And then they saw it. A bright patch of silver caught in the light, a player's necklace, glimmering against the rocky ground. Jenna lunged for it, but a sudden echo knocked the breath from her lungs. The necklace clattered away, tumbling just out of reach. "No!" she cried, scrambling after it, each breath filled with desperation. "Jenna!" Mark's voice broke through, filled with urgency. She looked back just in time to see the cave expand around them, darkness pooling where light dared not reach. Something was moving in that abyss, something with a heartbeat. A silence sharper than blades carved into the air, as if the cave itself held its breath in anticipation. "Get back!" Ashley screamed, but it was already too late. From the dark emerged ghostly shapes, human forms twisted and pained, faces pale as moonlight. They reached blindly, mouths stretched in silent screams, yearning for something Jenna couldn't grasp. There she stumbled back, her voice faltering. "Not human anymore," Marco finished, his eyes wide with terror. "They're the lost cursed to roam." Jenna's mind raced. These were not just spirits, these were echoes of lost lives. Trapped souls mourned by the earth itself, bound to the very stone they now stood on. "We need to go," Jenna shouted, urgency slicing through the horror. But the cave growled again, a low rumble, angry and insatiable. The shadows thickened, swirling, as the specters around them began to coalesce into horrific figures, contorted in agony and anguish. As Jenna turned to run, her heart raced. She grabbed Ashley and Mark, pulling them along with frantic speed. "No!" A voice hissed from the darkness, deep and menacing. They stumbled backward, the ground quaking beneath them as though the cave itself were alive. "You can't leave," it echoed, vibrating through their very bones. Each step felt like it could be the last. Jenna desperately searched for an exit, but the path twisted and turned, disorienting her. The walls pulsed around them, shifting like living flesh. What awaited outside those chilling confines? Just then, another voice hissed from behind, unmistakably familiar. Jenna, it echoed from every direction, her son's name, drenched in desperation and fear. A sickening twist of hope and dread filled her heart. But how could he be here? "Mom!" The scream cut through the darkness, shattering Jenna's composure. Could she save him? Or was she walking further into the very depths of despair? As Jenna plunged deeper into the nightmare, a singular thought seized her mind. What was the true cost of their rescue? "Mom!" The frantic call yanked Jenna from her thoughts. It was a sound she'd recognize anywhere, but it twisted her gut in ways she couldn't begin to comprehend. The darkness felt alive, buzzing with a malevolence that seeped into her bones. "Where are you?" she cried, her voice echoing, mixing with the low growls that seemed to mock her desperation. "Over here," came the reply, faint but insistent, pulling her deeper into the cave's suffocating embrace. Felt wrong, this place was wrong. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but her feet moved before her mind could catch up. Mark was pulling on her arm. "We shouldn't go further. It's not safe, Jenna. I have to find him," she shouted back, spurred by a burning determination mingled with fear. The shadows writhed around them as if they could hear her words, shifting with malicious intent. Ashley bit her lip, glancing nervously between Jenna and Marco. We can't let our fear control us. What if we really find a chill clawed down Jenna's spine? The growling grew louder, rumbling through the ground like thunder. The walls felt oppressive, like they might collapse in on them at any moment. Marco stood frozen, paralyzed by the haunting forms that swirled just beyond their lights. She could see the horror etched on his face. He was losing hope. "Mom! Help!" The plea pulled at her heartstrings, raw and desperate. She sprinted forward, her pulse racing. Each echoing step grew heavier, the shadows tightening their grip around her. Suddenly, the ground heaved beneath them, and Ashley stumbled, falling to her knees. "Jenna!" she gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't think we should split up." "No!" Jenna yelled, the urgency clawing at her throat. "Stay together." She turned back towards her friends, but it was as if a dark curtain was being drawn between them. The figures in the shadows loomed, growing bolder with every frantic breath. "I can't see you, Jenna," Ashley screamed, panic spilling from her voice. The darkness wrapped tighter around them, swallowing all light. Felt like a sentient thing, feeding on their fear. "Stop," Jenna demanded. "Just hold on." She could feel the cold crawl of dread over her skin, seeping into her soul, but their path was lit by a flickering light that drew her in like a moth to a flame. Ahead, the glimmer revealed a small alcove. "We can hide there," she shouted, pulling both Ashley and Mark toward it. Every instinct screamed for her to keep moving despite a lingering sense of malice in the air. They tumbled into the alcove, breathless and trembling. But as the darkness swirled outside, Jenna's heart started to pound. "What's happening? Where is he?" The walls began whispering, sharp voices weaving through the air like a web. "Come join us, you're just like us lost. Shut up," Mark shouted, slamming his palm against the rock. But the whispers only grew sharper, the figures outside writhing in anticipation. Jenna clamped her hands over her ears. This wasn't just a rescue mission, it was a trap, and they were lured deeper into its maw. "Mom, I need you," the voice cried again, now laced with terror. Jenna felt something primal grip her heart. She couldn't leave him, but could she fight against whatever evil resided in this cursed cave? What's the cost of their rescue? She whispered, trembling. The shadows grew thicker, and she could see a figure close to them. It was a boy, the boy she loved, drawn by the darkness. But something was off. It loomed, distorted, eyes hollow as it reached out. "Jenna," it moaned, twisting her hopes and fears into a single point of horror. What was true anymore? Did she know the boy at all? The thing beckoned, and Jenna's heart pounded harder, caught between reality and nightmare. Just beyond the gleaming edges of hope, an unthinkable truth waited to be revealed. What would she sacrifice to save her son? Was she even ready to face the answer? Jenna felt the cavernous air thicken, clinging to her skin like a suffocating fog. The boy, a twisted reflection of her son, moved closer, the edges of its form shimmering ominously in the low light. "Jenna," it echoed, voice cracking like dried branches underfoot. She clenched her teeth, fighting against the intoxicating pull of despair. "What have they done to you?" she cried, desperation overflowing. Ripping her gaze away felt like tearing flesh. It was no longer just a matter of saving him. She was losing herself in this nightmare. Mark stumbled back against the wall, his face pale. "That's not him, Jenna. It can't be," he gasped, but the warning fell on deaf ears. Her heart plummeted as she stepped forward. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive and responsive. "You're lost too," the boy said, and his mouth curled into a horrible smile, a resemblance of the laughter she longed to hear. "You belong here with us." "No," Ashley shouted, her voice breaking, hands flailing as if they could bat away the shadows swarming them. "We've got to get out. This isn't real." But Jenna felt the ground trembling beneath her feet, resonating with a dark rhythm, a heartbeat forged in ancient malice. Jenna's mind flashed back to countless moments of laughter at the dinner table, memories that crashed over her like waves. Alongside that warmth surged the fear that these could be the last moments she'd ever remember. "I want to leave you, not like this," She screamed at the figure, tears blurring her vision. "Stay with me." The boy extended an impossibly thin arm, fingers stretching like twists of smoke. He beckoned, sweetly, a siren-esque call that she couldn't ignore. Jenna stepped forward, her throat constricting tight as though a noose were forming. Mark seized her arm. "Jenna, don't." The panic in his voice broke through her fog, but the boy's hollow gaze still entranced her. Each pulse of darkness seemed to resonate, like a soft siren song pulling her toward an unfathomable void. "What are you willing to give up?" The whispers sliced through her thoughts, dark laughter intertwined with each word. "Everything you love or everything you are." Before she could respond, Ashley lunged, yanking Jenna back as the shimmering boy faded into the darkness. "Don't listen to it. We have to find a way out. Together." Suddenly, the cave walls groaned, grinding stones against stones, as a tremor shook them. Dust rained down, the air thick with dread. A crack appeared, jagged and yawning, inviting her into its depths. The whispers escalated, cascading like a waterfall of despair. "Run!" Jenna shouted, grabbing both her friends' hands. They took off, stumbling and slipping on the uneven ground, the cave's pulse echoing a furious warning behind them. "Where do we go?" Mark panted, panic surging anew. "Just follow me. I hear something." It felt insane, but there was another sound, breaking through the chaos, a faint voice that didn't belong to the shadows. "Jenna, help!" It pierced through the turmoil, beckoning her as if he was trapped in the very marrow of the darkness. Their sprint built into a wild frenzy, shadows clawing at their backs, snapping at their heels. Jenna felt her heart hammering in rhythmic desperation, each thump a reminder of what she risked losing. She glanced over her shoulder, shadows writhing in her wake. The alcove ahead glimmered again, not with hope, but with a sinister promise. Would they find safety there, or another trap? Just as they reached it, the ground trembled violently. A voice thundered, resonating through the cave, deep and primal. "You are trespassers in my domain." Jenna stumbled, dread choking her. The eyes in the darkness opened wide. Were they being hunted? Or was it she who was being tested? "Keep moving," Ashley shouted, pulling her away from the looming shapes. But as Jenna stumbled forward, her heart pounded with an unspeakable terror. At the edge of the alcove, she caught another glimpse of that twisted boy, the grotesque mockery of her son, now transformed, waiting with a smile that promised death. What awaited them on the other side? Would they discover the truth or lose themselves forever in the shadows? Jenna's legs churned, adrenaline surging through her as she sprinted toward the alcove. The shadows seemed to breathe, and each inhalation brought whispers of despair that wrapped around her like fog. Her heart raced, thundering in her chest as if it wanted to escape. "We can't stop," she gasped, feeling the icy breath of whatever lingered behind them. They plunged into the alcove, all three pressing against the cold stone walls, trying to catch their breath. But the room was teeming with darkness, thick and palpable. Jenna squinted, desperate for any sign of safety, but it was only them and a void that felt impossibly alive. The shrieks of unseen creatures echoed in the distance, and Jenna pressed her back harder against the stone. "Did we lose it?" Mark whispered, his voice shaky, eyes darting around for an answer. "I don't know," Ashley replied, clenching her fists. "We need to find a way out. We can't stay here." A flicker of movement caught Jenna's eye. In the corner of the alcove, something shifted in tandem with the shadows, a shape that wasn't quite solid, but wrinkled and twisting. The realization struck her like a knife. It was more than just the boy. It was countless souls, trapped within the darkness, their faces stretched in silent screams. "Look!" Jenna shouted, pointing. The sight sent icy tendrils of fear crawling up their spines. The walls seemed alive with the trapped souls, their expressions warped in anguish, mouths opening soundlessly. Jenna felt a crippling sense of dread. "What are we doing? We have to move." As if sensing the urgency, the darkness thickened, swirling and convulsing like a living being. Jenna felt her breath hitch in her throat. "Get back!" she yelled, lunging forward to pull Mark and Ashley deeper into the cave. But the shadows lunged too, attempting to ensnare her with icy fingers that beckoned from the depths. Every whisper grew louder, the cacophony blending into a single voice. "You wanted to find him, now you must choose?" Mark screamed, panic coating his voice. Jenna could hardly process what he meant, but before she could respond, the darkness erupted. Shadows blurred her friends' faces, distorting reality, dragging them toward the twisting mass. "No, fight it," Jenna yelled, grasping at Marcus' arm. But he was slipping away, eyes glazed over by a veil of blackness. It felt as if she were wrestling against a current, pulling them apart. Ashley's grip on Jenna tightened, mouth moving silently as terror washed over her. "Do we have to give up something?" Ashley gasped. Do we let him know?" Jenna cried, the horror of it ripping at her insides. "We won't lose anyone." But the shadows writhed, coalescing into forms that mimicked the faces of loved ones. Another whisper licked at Jenna's ear. "Everything you love for everything you are." Jenna could feel the darkness sinking into her, twisting her fears against her will. The faces pleading from the walls morphed into ones she knew all too well, her father smiling, her husband grasping her hands. "Join us," they murmured, voices reverberating through the fear-soaked air. "Stop," she shouted, shaking her head in denial. But the shadows thickened, compressing against her chest like a weight. Sparks of panic ignited as she felt herself wavering. The weight of her decisions clawed at her mind. It wasn't just her life. It was Mark and Ashley's too. "Hold on," she yelled, pulling them with all her strength. The shadows shrank back, but the darkness beyond began to stir with life. The cavern walls trembled violently as if reeling from something ancient and horrid beneath them. A deep growl rumbled, shaking the alcove to its core while a blinding light sliced through the shadows. Jenna felt herself being pulled in multiple directions toward the light, toward the dark, and even to the faces of all she lost. "Jenna, make a choice," Ashley's voice shrieked, desperate and urgent. And in that moment, everything surged forward: what she loved, what she feared, what she had to lose. "Mom?" It was the horrid, sweet echo of the boy's voice. Then silence. As Jenna faced the gaping maw of the darkness, the question echoed in her mind, heavy and suffocating. Would the echoes of her choices open the passage to escape, or lead them deeper into the realm of shadows? What awaited them at the heart of that darkness? Would they find a way out, or would it consume them all? Jenna's heart pounded, a visceral drumbeat beneath a siege of torment. She felt the shadows hold their breath, watching, waiting for her decision. Sweat dripped down her temples, stinging her eyes, mingling with the bitter taste of fear on her tongue. The distorted faces whispered more insistently now, echoing the boy's pleading voice. "Mom, help me stop," she shouted again, the sound a thin veneer over raw terror. She felt Ashley's hand tightening around her wrist, a lifeline against the squirming darkness. "Jenna!" Marcus' voice was a strangled whimper now, his eyes wide with panic, the light of his soul flickering. The darkness lunged at him again, a monstrous more ready to swallow him whole. She couldn't let that happen. "Choose." The voices in the walls rose into a cacophony, reflecting Jenna's inner turmoil. "Love, sacrifice, survival," she gasped, scrambling for clarity. "I choose," she stammered, feeling the weight of their lives pressing down on her. "I choose," but the words caught in her throat as the shadows reached for her like sharp claws dragging through the air. "Say it," Ashley urged, but the darkness slithered closer, wrapping around Jenna's legs, chilling her bones. Time stretched like taffy, relentless, tormenting her with indecision. Was it worth losing everything she held dear? The anguished faces pulsed, their eyes glistening with tears she had shed herself. She gritted her teeth, fighting the despair wrapping around her heart. "Let him go," she screamed, her voice sharp and fierce. The shadows yielded for a moment, just enough for Jenna to drag Mark back, crashing into him with all her force. Together, they faltered back against the stone wall, gasping as frigid fingers receded, cursing their hesitation. But it didn't last. In a heartbeat, A groaning sound erupted from deep within the cave, like the earth itself screaming. The walls of the alcove shook violently, sending dust filtering through the air. A gaping crack formed in the stone, yawning like a pit of despair, revealing an even deeper, darker void. "Run!" Jenna shouted, her instincts taking over. The darkness, enraged, roared behind them as they stumbled out of the alcove, plunging into chaotic corridors twisting in all directions. They dashed through the shadows, adrenaline sharper than ever, but the shrieks of lost souls chased them, echoing in their ears. "Where are we?" Mark gasped, eyes wide and wild, fear written across his face. "I don't know. Just keep moving," Jenna responded, her own heart racing as her mind raced faster, struggling to figure out their path. Every corner seemed to stretch on infinitely, a labyrinth of despair with no end in sight. As they turned a corner, Jenna spotted something glowing faintly at the far end of a sprawling cavern. "What is that?" she whispered, the urge to investigate tugging at her chest. "Could be a way out," Ashley urged, grasping Jenna's sleeve. But as they approached, the glow flickered, casting eerie shadows across the cavern walls. Figures began to materialize, more souls, twisted and gnarled like the first. Each one stared with hollow eyes, their mouths dripping with despair. "Join us," they moaned, the air thickening with a palpable dread that squeezed their chests. "No," Jenna yelled, instinctively stepping back, a surge of defiance rising. But the glow pulsed again, and from it emerged the boy. "Help me. Please, is it him?" Mark whispered, voice quavering. Jenna's heart clenched. "But is he real?" Ashley hesitated, horror threading through her tone. "There's no way to tell," Jenna screamed, but the boy's outstretched hand seemed to shimmer, offering hope or doom. Around them, the cavern darkened. The souls began to wail, their cries melding into a horrific symphony of loss. Jenna felt the walls closing in, threatening to consume her. "Jenna, I'm scared," Mark's voice trembled, grounding her, a stark reminder of the reality confronting them. She took a deep breath, heart hammering. The light flickered again ominously, and the whispers turned to desperate roars. Would she pull her friends toward the boy, the sliver of warmth in a freezing abyss, or would she risk everything to escape the darkness, leaving him behind? In that moment, clarity struck her hard. "We can't trust it. We have to go," she shouted, but the shadows stirred, swirling, as if alive and aware of their choice. "What if it's the only way?" Mark murmured, the turmoil evident in his eyes. Doubts creeping back, Ian's panic flared. Jenna's mind raced with what had been said. Everything they loved, for everything they were, the glowing figure beckoned them forward, an offer wrapped in a facade of innocence. But the darkness writhed with its unseen hunger, wanting to drag her back into its folds. "Choose now," the cavern echoed, a voice laced with desperation and dire foreboding. What choice would Jenna make? Would she risk it all for a glimmer of hope, or would she turn her back on the boy, sealing his fate and their own? The weight of that moment hung heavy, and screams echoed menacingly from the shadows as Jenna wavered. What if would this choice lead them to escape, or seal them farther into doom? She had to decide, and time was running out. The piercing glow seemed to split the darkness around them, a beacon amidst the storm. Jenna's mind swirled, her instincts screaming at her. "We have to go now." The words tumbled out in a frantic push, but reality felt slippery. The chilling grip of terror didn't let go. Mark glanced desperately at the boy, who still stood at the edge of the glow, his little face a mask of hope and horror combined. "What if he's real?" he gasped, clenching his fists. Ashley's face was pale, the color draining as the shadows lunged forward. "We can't leave him. What if he's trapped like us?" "Trapped or tricked?" Jenna shot back, swallowing hard. The anguished faces surrounding them curdled her stomach. "The darkness is feeding off our fear. It's using him. Just look at those souls." The cavern trembled, the walls vibrating with a menacing hum. Moans and whispers grew louder, raps of tension tightening as if the cavern itself wanted to consume them whole. She could almost hear the frantic thumping of her heart, matching the frantic chant of "Join us." "Join us." Jenna pulled Mark away, but he resisted. "We can't just abandon him. The choice isn't just about him." Jenna felt a surge of frustration squeezing her chest. "It's about us. Can you imagine what will happen if we fail?" The boy stepped forward, feigning innocence illuminated by that sickly glow. "Please, I need help. You're my only chance." His voice, soft and sweet, felt like ice slicing through Jenna's resolve. Every instinct screamed to turn around, to run deeper into the labyrinth. But where? The pained faces shifted around them, the lost souls swirling closer. No terms for negotiation, just relentless hunger. "Okay, we stay together," Ashley said breathlessly, convinced there had to be a way. "There must be a reason we were brought here." Her voice trailed off, uncertainty creeping in, convolutions slipping into the air like fog. "Right," Mark said, still locked on the boy. "What if he can guide us? Wouldn't that be worth the risk?" "No, you're not thinking straight," Jenna shouted, the walls thundering back with a shudder. The shadows dwelled on her words, eager for her despair. "The moment we attach ourselves to that glow, we become nothing more than food for the darkness." The boy's hopeful expression twisted into something sinister for just a brief second. A flicker of dread seeped into Jenna's spine. It was enough to jolt her senses. "Let us find a way out," Jenna insisted. She could feel the weight of impossibility wrapping around them, moment by moment, pushing them back toward the ravenous void. They turned away from the glow, plowing deeper into the darkness. The moans surged angrily. The souls shrieked in discontent, their words colliding into a storm. "Come back. You belong here." "No," Jenna gasped, adrenaline roaring through her veins. They plunged into narrow passages, walls squeezing tighter with every frantic step. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, driving her forward as fear loomed incessantly behind. "Where do we go now?" Mark asked, his voice betraying a tremor. "Somewhere away from whatever that was," she huffed, dragging them along. Behind them came the sounds of anguish and despair, the cavern screaming as they broke free of its grasp at least for a moment. Jenna's breath quickened, the air thickening with dread and confusion. Suddenly, to her left, the ground trembled and buckled, splitting open with a roar that shook the air. The earth yawned wide, revealing a chasm that seemed to stretch into nothingness. "No!" Jenna screamed, grabbing Ashley's arm and yanking her away just in time. "What is happening?" Ashley cried, terror-laced panic flashing in her eyes. The wails grew louder, now mixed with guttural growling sounds, a monstrous hunger rising from the depths. Jenna's heart raced. "We need to go now." But as they turned to escape, the flicker of the glow returned from behind them, shimmering with insidious promises. "Help me, please." The boy's voice lured them again, sliding into their minds like poison. "Not again," Mark cried out, and in an instant he tore free from them, racing toward the glow. "Mark!" Jenna shouted in horror, her voice cracking. But it was too late. He was too far gone, mesmerized by the pleading light. "Something's wrong. We can't." Ashley stumbled back, heart sinking as the shadows rallied, swirling menacingly around Mark. Jenna fought to regain control. "We have to save him," she screamed, adrenaline flooding her. Time was slipping. "Jenna!" Ashley's voice broke, a desperate plea amid the chaos. But could she save him, or would she become one of the forsaken souls lost forever? The walls shivered, and the very earth's breath felt like it was snatching their futures. With dread building, Jenna faced the choice: summon every ounce of bravery she had left and dive headfirst into chaos, or flee into the dark unknown behind. "Mark!" she shouted, heart churning as threats loomed dangerously close. Time was running out, but so was the light. How would she face the darkness when it called to her? The glimmers of hope flickered. What would be left for them if they succumbed? As whispers clawed at her resolve, the chasm behind them widened, revealing a desperate secret. Would she chase after what was left of Mark, or would she succumb to the shadows praying for her downfall? Choices loomed, the echoes of their past chasing them as darkness hungered at the heart of the cave. What awaited them ahead, when all seems lost? The very thought curdled her stomach. Jenna's heart thudded like a hammer against her ribcage, pumping urgency into her veins. The darkness around her felt alive, curling like thick smoke, eager to suffocate any flicker of hope. She wanted to scream, to curse the malevolent forces at work, but words failed her. Instead, she pushed every ounce of fury and fear into her legs, charging toward Mark. "Stay away from him," she cried, her voice trembling yet fierce, echoing through the cavern like a war cry. The shadows writhed, drawn to her defiance. They seemed to shimmer, sharp edges cutting into her bravado, whispering promises of safety that sent chills down her spine. Mark was almost lost to the spell of the glow. His eyes had turned glassy, reflecting that sickly light. She could see him swaying, caught between wanting to step forward and the facade of danger that Jenna tried to tear him from. In that split second, Jenna felt the raw clenching of despair. "Mark, snap out of it." She lunged for him, but the shadows lashed out around her, grabbing for her arms, cold fingers sinking into her flesh. "Fight it." As she clutched his shoulder, Jenna could feel a tremor running through him, a conflict within that pulled her taut. "You have to fight. You have to remember us." It took a moment, one excruciating heartbeat, but finally, something flickered behind his eyes. It was a flicker of recognition, and with it came a pulse of clarity. Within the agonizing spiral of doubt, Mark's expression shifted. "Jenna?" he gasped, breaking free from the thrall, blinking like a man emerging from a nightmare. Yes. Come back. We have to go." But the moment was short-lived. The darkness writhed around them, more desperate now, sensing that hope was about to slip away. A deafening roar invaded the cave. The shadows snapped tighter, folding around Ashley, drawing her closer to the glimmering void. "No, Ashley." Mark's voice pierced through the chaos, and without thinking, he surged forward, but Jenna grabbed his arm, pulling him back with pure instinct. They could not afford to lose another. The cavern groaned as if aware of their struggle, the ceiling trembling menacingly. Scraps of dirt and stone fell around them like snow, ghosts of the cave's anguish manifesting. "We have to go deeper," Mark shouted, scanning the darkness for any sign of an escape. But every moment wasted felt like an eternity. The cries of the lost souls reverberated through the chamber, intensifying the heartbeat of despair. "Which way?" Ashley panted. "What do we do?" Jenna's mind raced. To the left, shadows threatened to swallow them whole. But there, in the deeper recesses of darkness, she thought she could see another flicker, this one different, more erratic, as if something truly alive struggled within the abyss. "Over there." Jenna pointed, voice strained. "We have to try." As they rushed toward the uncertain light, the shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and sorrow. "Join us. You are ours." The air grew thick with despair, clawing at their skin like invisible talons. The closer they got, the more unholy the beacon became. Jenna could feel it pulling at her within. The allure of chaos whispered promises, unsettling yet sweet. "Don't look back," she forced out, forcing herself and her friends forward, unwilling to let them slip into the void. But the terrain suddenly shifted beneath them, ground collapsing, sending stones cascading downward. They stumbled, hands flying out to catch their balance and each other. All around them, despair echoed, pulling at their sanity. These weren't mere shadows, they were remnants of everything lost to this cursed cave. A cry of anguish echoed as the earth opened again. The throaty growl of something unseen echoed from within. Jenna felt the chill of fear weave through her veins again. Something was waiting, a being older than this darkness. Something that hungered, something fierce. "Keep moving. We're not done." She pushed her friends ahead, her heart pounding with dread. But as they turned a corner, the gloomy tunnel narrowed, dangerously closing in, and the putrid breath of the unseen sent her instincts screaming. "Watch out!" Mark shouted, but it was too late. The ground buckled beneath Ashley, her foot snagging on a jagged rock. She fell, forcing Jenna to lurch toward her, arms outstretched. In that moment of glancing down, Jenna felt the air shift. The encroaching shadow erupted into a torrent, dragging them toward a pit. "No!" Ashley cried. Help me. Jenna lunged, desperate not to lose either of them. But as her fingertips brushed against Ashley's hand, Jenna felt a dark tendril wrap around her ankle, tugging her toward the void. Hold on. Mark roared, but the struggle was futile against the monstrous grip. Terror clawed at Jenna's throat. She had to make a choice. Save Ashley or save herself from the hungry dark. Let go. Ashley yelled, her voice fraying. No. Jenna screamed, eyes wide as she fought against the weight of despair pulling her under as they hung in the balance. Shadows writhed, mocking with glee. Would darkness claim them all? The moment stretched, everything stopped, and through the chaos of fear, a haunting realization struck. The truth of the cave, the darkness that fed on their fears, was only just beginning to reveal itself. What did it want? In that heartbeat of stillness, the sounds of the pit echoed louder. A monstrous voice murmuring sweet promises that could shatter the very core of their existence. What lay ahead in the gnawing depths? Jenna's stomach twisted. If they fell, would they ever escape the shadows lurking below? This time, it was not just about survival, it was about the unknown that awaited them. Thick with dread as the shadows scrounged for souls to consume. Would she have the strength to resist or succumb to what awaited in the bleakness? A choice lingering like a dark omen, twisted in the air. Once more, the darkness beckoned. Jenna's heart raced as the shadows around her seemed to pulse with life, surging greedily toward the pit below. The grip on her ankle tightened, an icy vice sending a shock of terror coursing through her body. She could feel the darkness speaking to her, tempting her with whispers. Behind her, she heard Ashley's cries mingling with Mark's frantic pleas. No, don't let go, Ashley screamed, desperation threading through her voice. Each cry echoed off the cavern walls, a haunting reminder of how close they all were to the edge of oblivion. Just hold on, Jenna shouted back, panic setting in as she fought the malevolent pull at her ankle. But the force was unrelenting, and with each passing second, she could feel both her resolve and strength waning. The shadows felt like icy fingers, curling around her mind, suggesting that surrender might be so much easier than this fight. Get her. Mark was yelling, but Jenna's focus was split. She couldn't let Ashley fall. The moment froze everything constricted to this cruel tableau of horror. For a brief flicker, it seemed as if the pit yawned wider, eager to swallow them whole. Jenna's legs trembled, the weight of her body growing heavier with undeniable dread. Then a desperate instinct ignited within her. Mark, use the rope. She glanced back at him, mad hope lighting her features. She spotted the climbing gear nestled in his backpack, a lifeline in the darkness. Are you crazy? He shouted, eyes wild with panic. We'll all fall. No, trust me. Throw it. Each second felt like an eternity as the shadows crawled closer, gnashing beneath them. With a nod, Mark scrambled, heart hammering as he fumbled with the gear. The rope dropped down, barely reaching Jenna, who fought to maintain her grip on Ashley's hand. She could see Mark's face illuminated by a faint, flickering light, and somehow that light steadied her. Grab it, she urged Ashley, holding it out when it finally reached her grasp. Pull, Ashley cried, an edge of fear tinging her voice. Jenna's heart thundered as she secured the rope with shaky hands, praying they could wrest Ashley back from the pit. But the shadows recoiled, flaring with rage, legs extending from the darkness as if to snare them all. On three, Mark shouted, eyes wild with determination. 1, 2, 3. They pulled, summoning every ounce of strength, but the darkness had other plans. The ground below shifted violently, and in that moment, Jenna felt the world spin. A scream shattered the air as Ashley slipped just a fraction. Time seemed to slow as Jenna's heart dropped into her stomach. No, not again. With a lurch, they were falling. Jenna's grip tightened. Every muscle in her screamed as she heaved, dread tightening around her throat like a noose. And then she saw it. From the black pit, a grotesque figure slithered, limbs taut against the light for an instant. It had no face, only a maw, ragged and hungry, stretching wide enough to swallow the darkness whole. Let go. Ashley yelled again, terror flooding her features. "You have to save yourself." "No." The word erupted from Jenna's chest like a war cry. Jenna could feel the strength of Ashley's grip faltering, the shadows dripping from the cavern walls like spilled ink. "Hold on," Mark shouted once again, but his voice was threatening to disappear, swallowed whole by the roar of the shadows. The ground beneath them cracked, and a fissure opened, swallowing the flickering light. Jenna gritted her teeth, adrenaline fueling her struggle. They couldn't let the cave take another. And then it happened, a blinding flash. Jenna caught a glimmer of hope in the depths of chaos, a light that beckoned them with a fervor that made her heart race. "Mark, the light, push against it." He looked at her, torn between disbelief and wild hope, but the plea in her eyes pushed him to act. As they yanked at the rope, the darkness hissed in rage, its hold lessening an instant. Jenna felt the pressure release just slightly, as if the shadows could realize that hope was a venom they couldn't contain. But what was that presence crawling just beyond the surface? And what choice would each of them have to make to escape? They couldn't let fear rule them, not now. Jenna took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. There was more to this cave than shadow and fear. What unseen forces stood waiting? The air grew heavy, thick with anticipation, the darkness thickening like a storm cloud on a wicked horizon. What awaited them on the other side? In that instant, something whispered in the darkness, a call that trembled with ancient hunger. "Do you really believe you can escape?" "There will always be a price," the shadows roared in answer. Jenna braced herself. The real nightmare was just beginning. The darkness in the cave roared in fury as Jenna felt the weight of it, all the lives at stake, the unseen horrors lurking in the abyss, and now, her friends in peril. With tears in her eyes and fear clawing at her insides, Jenna gritted her teeth. They couldn't afford to slip further into this chaos. They had to find a way out. "Stay together," Jenna urged, still holding tightly to Mark, his face lined with panic. She drew strength from his grip, tightening her hold as they stumbled forward. "We can't let the shadows win." Just then, a tremor shook the ground beneath them. Wilting, the cavern seemed to bore down with menacing intent. A chilling cry echoed, and Jenna's heart ached as she recognized the haunting pain of lost souls. They were fanatical in their despair, and their whispers clawed at her like fraying rope. That in a flash, her instinct kicked in. "We need to keep moving." She turned, scanning the darkened passage. A light flickered faintly up ahead, a beacon amidst the despair. "There, we have to reach it." They pressed on, sprinting down the narrow path, the walls reverberating with the roars of despicable despair. Shadows swirled around, grasping for them, but Jenna wouldn't let fear chain her down. She could feel Mark's breathing quicken beside her, his resolve reigniting as they sprinted towards the light. "Mom! Help!" That voice pierced through the chaos her son. Panic washed over Jenna in waves. The memory of his laughter, his hugs, the warmth of love surged into her chest. "We're coming," she shouted, pushing herself forward with renewed determination. The soft glow ahead pulsed rhythmic life, and it compelled her, tugging at her very soul. If there was even a sliver of hope to find him, she would seize it. As they approached the altar of light, a figure swirled within it, a grotesque mockery of her son. "Help me, please," it crooned, eyes hollow but eyes that once sparkled with warmth. Her heart twisted. "No!" Jenna yelled, ripping her gaze away. "It's not him. It's a trap." Fear surged over her body like ice water, and she turned back, forcing both her friends to keep moving. The echoes of lost souls thundered behind them, their desperation clawing for attention. But Jenna wouldn't look back. She refused to believe that dark domain was stronger than love. They reached the flickering light, and as they crossed its threshold, the chaos behind them roared louder, the darkness enraged. Suddenly, the wall to their right peeled back, revealing a passage that shimmered with brightness. It was a mere crack, but it felt real, a chance to escape. "In there!" Jenna shouted, urging her friends toward the opening. They tumbled into the narrow space, their lungs heaving in the reprieve from the darkness grasp. As they pushed through, escaping the cave's clutches felt palpable. A sense of freedom wrapped tenderly around them, blood pounded in their ears like a war drum. But then, something erupted from behind. The grand maw of darkness lunged forward, its jagged teeth reaching for them. The shadows morphed into horrific forms, their wails an unsettled symphony meant to terrify. "No, not again," Jenna screamed, her feet moving with desperate haste. In that moment of panic, Jenna felt something stir deep within her. A fierce courage ignited by the love she had for everything she held dear. "Together," she screamed, turning to Mark and Ashley, their faces twisted in fear, yet they nodded, grasping her hands tightly. They pivoted toward the blinding light oozing from the crack ahead. "Let us go," Jenna shouted, and with every ounce of strength, the three of them plunged forward into the brightness. The shadows crested against the edges of light, screaming defiantly as they were slowly consumed by the radiant glow. And just like that, the shadows were gone. The distant murmurs transformed into soft whispers, as if the cavern itself sighed in resignation. Wrapped in the warmth of golden light, Jenna uncovered her strength. Their breaths slowed, and for the first time in what felt like eternity, they were free from the cavernous, intoxicating grip. Flashes of color burst around them as they tumbled out into the fresh air, sunlight crashing down as if they were reborn. As Jenna collapsed to the forest floor alongside Mark and Ashley, tears streamed down her face, releasing the fear that threaded through her body. She grasped their hands tightly, allowing the burst of sunlight to wash over them as they cried for lost comfort. "No more darkness," Jenna gasped, her heart pounding, but alive with hope. Just beyond them stood a line of rescuers with wide eyes, waiting, eager to help, not drown in ancient grief anymore but to give new life. Jenna couldn't believe they had made it. She held onto Mark and Ashley tightly, a realization hitting her with warmth. Love would always dispel the shadows. She lifted her eyes toward the sky, breathless. Lives could start anew. "Let us go home," she whispered, feeling a weight lift from her chest. They nodded, the shadows of their fears now mere echoes behind them. Together, they turned toward their town, knowing the darkness would remain as long as there were those lost around it. But they had chosen light. "Mom!" A familiar voice just ahead drew her attention. She glanced up, her heart leaping as her son ran toward her. She swept him into her arms, unable to hold back the sobs of pure relief. They were all alive. Never again, Jenna vowed, holding him tight in that moment, strong enough to banish any darkness from their lives. As the sun set in colorful strokes across the sky, surrounded by family and friends, Jenna looked back at the cave, knowing it would forever remind them of what they faced. But more importantly, it signaled life over despair, courage over fear. They could all choose light, but the battle wasn't over. The chorus of darkness would always lurk nearby. And this experience, a badge of survival, reminded her to guide others, to never let the shadows win. And now, as the sun dipped low, she would be the light in their small town, bright enough to save not just herself, but those still lost in the suffocating gloom. Wow, what a poignant journey we've shared today together. But before you go, this is the moment to show your support and subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow as a community. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories, and what you thought of this heart-pounding conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They deserve to experience the heart, the darkness, and the light we've uncovered today.